Welcome back, everybody, to more from the Sableyes. I'm here today with the big cast of people to talk about a whole bunch of cards. We've got Jordan, Ryan, and Blake. How's it going, boys?
I'm ecstatic.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we're going to be doing a bit of a tier list for us. We've picked out a bunch of cards, 53 cards from Unbroken bonds that we reckon are worth talking about, and we're going to chuck them in a tier list to try and decide which ones you should go for in your massive Troll and Toad order. So, what do I reckon should we just start off with the best card in the set?
Seems good.
Yep. It's the Deno for sure. Come on, like that's the best card. That's S tier. It can go in anything. It's broken for 2 years.
It's probably the best card all around.
Yeah.
Not 2 years, you never know.
Well,
They
that's
could cuck
true.
us again.
They could.
They could pull an early rotation again.
They could.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any reason to have this any lower than S tier. Like, that is the best card in the set for mine. And if you pull one, you're not making as much money as Reshizard, but you've got a better card. So I'd be happy with that.
I actually think that the Dene's GX attack is actually really strong as well in certain scenarios, and you can even use it in any deck if you verse something that plays down a Thunder Mountain for 1 colorless energy.
Yeah, you can just do your little Sky Return boop, for free. Well, one energy. Just, boop, see you later.
Energy and a GX counter.
Yep. that sounds fine. That's fine. Most of the time, you're just going to use it for its busted ability anyway. So just drawing 6 cards is really, really good. Okay, let's move on because we've got a ton of cards here, and I've got them in kind of a weird order. So we're just going to go in that weird order. The next card we've got to talk about is Zoro Ninja, which we could put pretty much anywhere. Zoroark Greninja. I don't think it's that good, but it's not the worst card floating
I think
around.
it's average.
I think it's a C. I had it in my hands and I was going towards a C.
Yeah, C or maybe B, but probably C.
It's somewhere in between between B and C. It
Yeah.
could potentially be a Tier 2 deck.
A Tier 2 deck, you reckon?
I think it could be a top tier deck.
Alright, it's got potential. It could get there, but at the moment, as we're looking at it, it seems like it gets overpowered by lots of stuff, and like it's cool. It's got potential, but it's not quite up there just yet, I would say. So,
And as we're about to see, we're like the set literally dropped a little bit more fighting support as well. So
yeah, that's true. So
times haven't gotten easier on it either.
and it's got more things that it has to deal with. So I'm happy to put it in C. Everyone else?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Yep.
Beautiful. Let's go on with another tag team. This time, Buzzwole Pheromosa, which was busted in Japan. Like, it was really, really good in Japan. But it has unfortunately been released in a set that's full of fire support. So that's going to drop it down from quite high to quite low, I'd imagine.
Yeah, the thing about it, like, it did so well in Japan because Buzzwole was the first, like, decent tag team to come out. It was the very first block of our block of 3 that was Unbroken Bonds. And their big tournament happened just after the first one, which happened to have pretty much only Buzzwole as a good card in it.
Yeah.
Which is why it did so well.
And it is, in theory, it's a really, really good card. Like, it's got a decent GX attack, it's got good first attack, it's got lots going for it, but it's just, at the moment, it's not going to see a huge amount of play. I think it's average to below average at the moment.
At the moment, I'd put it at the D tier.
You reckon?
I think any card that has that little red symbol at the bottom left drops 2 tiers for having that symbol.
Just because it's got it?
Yep.
I would
Fair
think
enough.
it's higher tier.
You reckon it's higher?
Well, it's a good card, it's good printed, it's pretty much like the same, but like a little bit better. And the only thing it's hindered by is fire, so like going on the format, it's like pretty much an E tier card. But if like fire wasn't there, it'd be pretty high up there.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm happy to put it in C for that reason. I reckon, like Ryan said, if fire wasn't a big threat, then it could be up there. And like if they print a whole bunch of like water support in the next set, then it's probably going to move up, right? Because it would do really, really well in a meta that's water heavy. So
As long as they have the green symbol.
Yeah, it'd be a pyramid, yeah.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I agree with it being on a similar tier to Greninja Zoroark, and I think that it kind of has more potential than Greninja Zoroark, except obviously the fact that it's in a bad position in the format right now kind of keeps it.
The GX attack is insane. If that ever works, then you win.
Yeah.
So, pretty similar to Kiram in that respect.
It's one of those cards that it's like, so like Zoro Ninja is kind of like an average card. all around, but Buzzwole Pheromosa kind of has a high potential, but like a lower floor. Like it is better potentially, but it's also worse potentially. After sitting on the fence with that one, that's not a great explanation.
I get what you were going for. It's worse because of the meta, whereas Zoro just sort of like isn't as good a card, but isn't as affected by like, the flow of the meta as Buzzwole is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Alright, let's move on, because we only have so much time to talk about all of these stupid cards. Let's talk about another tag team. We'll put him in the middle here. Machamp, Marshadow Tag Team GX.
At the bottom.
At the bottom, you reckon, all the way down here, E tier?
I wouldn't be so mean. I would say D tier. It's got fighting support. It's revenge. It's got a lot of HP. The GX attack's pretty spicy if you get it to work.
Yeah, I reckon it's an interesting card, but it's one of those ones that I don't see you ever getting the GX attack off, like unless you're in a position where you should be winning anyway. I like the idea of using it like in Zorolycan, if Zorolycan's still a thing, because then you can like revenge with a counter gain and do 120 for an energy, which seems pretty good. But like apart from that, I don't see it being that amazing.
I feel like it's better than the other two tag teams at the moment, though, just because of that tech ability in Zorolycan and the fact that you can kind of bench it out of nowhere and have a strong basic fighting attacker that can revenge something. I think that it's probably not that much better than the other two, but I think it probably has the most potential in the current metagame out of the three.
Yeah, but you're not going to build a deck around it. It's just going to be a tech. Like the other two, like have potential to be an archetype. I don't see a deck in the future that's got Marshadow Machamp as its main attacker. That seems a long way off from here.
Yeah, this seems like a weird maybe tech attacker that could potentially be good. And for me, that's like a D tier.
Well, it's a one-of card that you might put in one deck out of 10 that you'd play in the format. So like, you wouldn't be unhappy to have one, like in your binder, but I doubt you'd take it out that often.
Yeah, D seems fair, I think.
When we get Focus Belt in the next set, then we'll suddenly have to re-review this card.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement
altogether.
Yeah.
So when it gets more support, the card will be better, obviously, and we'll have to re-review it. But at this stage, it's a D tier card for me.
Beautiful. Ryan, you agree?
Yep.
Beauty. Alright, next tag team is Gardevoir Sylveon. Blake, you've played this a lot. What do you think?
This is a tricky one for me. I think the only thing that limits this card is like the low damage ceiling. It sort of caps out. There's no real modifiers for Fairy other than like the very basic choice bands and like the things every type has access to, like neutral cards like Coco and Kikui and choice bands.
Yeah, that's true.
So
but it's
play
got
it as more of a tanky thing.
Yeah, it's got all of the fairy charms and stuff. So like it doesn't have to one-shot stuff because in theory it's going to be around for a while.
It's a good card because of all of those other reasons, but I think that's its only bad quality is that it doesn't have the ability to take big one-shots.
Where do we say it goes though? We need to make a decision.
For me, it's a strong card. I think it's somewhere in between A or B. I'm leaning more towards B. I don't think the meta's gonna. I don't know if the meta's gonna find a place for it.
What do you think, Ryan?
It's too fast, too strong for it.
I think it's B tier.
B tier, Jordan.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I just worry that if its best quality is bulk, and we're in a format where cards like Reshiram are taking one hits, then I don't think it can be a top tier deck right now. But it's certainly not bad.
There's better bulky cards.
Yeah, I think that it's of the tag teams that we've got, it's probably like the second best one that's in this set. But yeah, there's better options for it. To like you can take with better stuff, and like Blake said, it's not got a huge damage ceiling. But hey, it's an archetype. That's an interesting archetype, and it's got cool tools. So that seems fine. B tier seems fine for me.
The main thing for me is that the fairy charms don't help against non-GXs. So so you know the other popular non-GX decks are gonna like have a bit of a field day with this deck. I feel
that's fair enough. All right, let's move on to the next tag team, and that is Lucario Melmetal. Where does this boy fit?
B tier.
B tier. Explain yourself.
This deck is going to be in every stall deck until it's rotated. For a DC, it reduces all the damage your metal types take for the rest of the game by 30. There's like 2 or 3 different tools now that reduce damage by an absurd amount. Some reduce weakness, some prevent damage counters, and some just reduce damage by 70 because that's fair, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess that's fun.
And if you attach a DC like you're going to, because that's all the energy you need to play, then you also get to ditch all the energy off of your opponent's Pokemon. I ditched 8 energy off of a Reshiram Charizard today because they Kiawe'd twice trying to desperately get away from being out of range of Wonder Labyrinth and Plumeria, so they over-attached energy, and then I GX'd them and they lost 8 energy.
Yikes.
They very quickly won that game.
Yeah, as you would.
Mm.
What do you think, Ram?
Yeah.
Well, pretty much we're just thinking about worlds, and given that there's no DC reprint so far,
well, we're not
it
necessarily thinking
optional.
about worlds.
Well, now yeah, it's a stall deck. It replaces probably
Yeah.
like the Hoopers maybe.
It gives you an extra card in that Hooper Stally matchup. I'd be happy
Like a
to
2-of.
go with it. Yeah, that seems like
Also,
a pretty...
you don't actually need double colors to make it work. It does work for just a colorless energy for the main.
Yeah, it just doesn't
Yeah.
discard energy without the DC.
Just the negative 30 is pretty good.
My concern with this card is something we mentioned earlier. The fact that it's got that red symbol at the bottom of the card kind of makes me think that it drops down a little bit. But the fact that Zoroark decks are moving more towards these triple colorless builds and having less basic energy such as Lycanroc, all of a sudden Stool decks quite a lot stronger against Zoroark, and therefore pretty much going to beat anything that isn't Reshiram.
Also, there's a cool tool card that prevents
Yeah, I was about to say.
prevents weakness. So
Yeah. So if you've got the frying pan on it, then it doesn't even really care about Reshizard. Like, you need to play Field Blower to get rid of it. So
or they need to do a 6 energy double blaze to take it out.
which is tough when you're removing all of their energy the first turn that you can attack.
And also, it doesn't even take a knockout unless they have a choice band if you have Frying Pan and have to clear the GX attack that game.
Yeah, I think this card's very strong and the right medical. You just have to make sure you play it at the right tournament.
Yeah, I think B's pretty reasonable. I think that's fair.
Agreed.
Okay, well, let's go with the next one. We've got Alolan Muck.
E
tier.
I think this is the first E tier card.
Yeah, I don't see this as being amazing. I can see like some cool stuff that you might do with it, but yeah, you would.
Here's the thing with this card: all of its attacks rely on the fact that your opponent is going to get poisoned and can't remove it. As soon as you remove the special condition, pretty much everything this card does is meaningless, and almost all of the top decks in general have easy ways to remove special conditions just via switching Guzma.
This deck falls prey to the history of every card that's tried to do anything similar. Every card that's relied on the fact that it does more damage between turns on poison, or any such thing like that. Any play on superior poison or something like that has always turned out to fail. Like, the Toxapex GX will do like 100 poison damage each turn.
And that couldn't even be anything. Yeah.
And that cost less to do on not a tag team. It was just a stage 1 instead, and that one was bad because of the same reasons. It's very easy to remove special conditions, even with the new stadium. So, I think this card's bad. I don't think it's ever going to work.
I tend to agree. Ryan, any key points apart from it's bad?
Tanky, that's about it.
It's tanky, yeah. That's probably, and the fact that it's got GX written on it means that it's on the list and not just immediately in the bulk pile. So that's good for it, I guess. All right, we got one more tag team to look at, and I'll just pop it up here at absolute minimum. Reshiram Charizard is at least an A tier card, if not S tier.
Yeah, that's the question. Is it A tier or is it
A tier? A tier.
It's probably A tier.
I think it's A tier just because it's not it's not.
It's only good because Wilder.
Yeah, it's good because of other stuff.
Yeah, it's not the card. It is truly a good card, but it is enabled by other cards, which is the reason it's not an S tier card. It's not on its own a ridiculously good card.
Yeah, like Dedenne on its own is a busted card, but Reshiram Charizard, if you just had it by itself, wouldn't do that much. So
it could be a good card by itself because it's just a 2 attachment outrage, and
Yeah,
it's got 270
that's
HP as well.
that is true. So,
But that would probably make it like a C tier card. If it was solely based on like using outrage, I think it would be like a C tier card for me.
Well, I reckon A tier is pretty fair. And what we'll do is we'll just put the card in that makes this card an A tier card, and we'll put Welder right at the very top there. I think this is an S tier card. I think this card is exceptional. Like, if you were to say to me like a year ago that in a turn you could draw 3 cards and attach 3 energy, like, sign me up. That seems like a pretty good card. I'd be happy to play that.
If you told me 2 years ago that they were going to reprint Blacksmith, but slightly different, also you get to draw 3 cards, because hell, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Then I would say, sure, sign me up.
This is an absolutely ridiculous card.
Say if
Also,
Charizard wasn't released though, would Welder be applied to any other card?
Well, here's the thing: the fact that it doesn't accelerate to only fire Pokemon means it's actually got uses outside Reshiram. Like you can power up a lot of different stuff with Welder that you wouldn't really think of straight away, just because it's more versatile than you'd originally think.
Yeah, like you can anything that has a double colorless energy cost, you can use use with Welder. You can just attach it to there. Like Persian has a triple colorless energy cost. You can weld it to it and attach a fire energy and attack with it. Like I don't know if that's ever something that you would do, but like you can. That's an option. So
you
suddenly
can weld it to a Zoroark GX
yeah,
if you want to build it with fire energy and heat factory instead.
Yep, you can.
I love drawing cards.
I mean, that sounds dumb, but going forward when DCU rotates, those sorts of weird strategies might not actually be terrible.
Yeah, like there's a Wheezing which we'll talk about later that's got a double colorless attachment cost. There's a Rhydon that has one. Hitmontop has one. So I'm just looking at the cards that are in the list. Like double colorless is not an uncommon amount of energy to attach. So Welder being able to supply that whilst giving you 3 extra cards, that's just busted. That's a really good card.
All the other 5 support.
I could see an argument for it being A tier just because it is a bit more specific. It's not just one of those absolute S tier supports that goes in every deck, but it's definitely at the very least A tier, and I can respect the idea of it being an S tier.
Yeah, I reckon we leave it in S tier because I'm just like this card is amazing.
The fact that it suddenly makes every other it suddenly made everyone search their entire collection of cards that's in rotation for red cards and see if it's better because you can suddenly attach 2 energy and 1 turn to it out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And suddenly we found like half a dozen cards worth looking at, like Dragon's Majesty Turtonator for one.
Was just like a bulk card, and then Welder comes out, and suddenly people are scrambling to try and get him.
Seems good.
Really, really good card. Alright, now we've got a couple of options here. We can go like down the supporter line, or we can go down the line of cards that Welder makes good, or we can go GXs. What would we like to do first?
We could round out the fire support.
Do the fire stuff? Alright, let's do the fire stuff. I'll start off with a nice easy one. This is Salazzle with Roast Reveal to draw 3 cards. Where do we think it goes?
I put it in A tier on my
computer. A or B, I think.
Yeah, B.
B? I'll put it in B.
I mean, it's a good support Pokemon, it draws 3, but it can also be used in alternate strategies like Unknown Hand, for example. I know a lot of people are trying to think of ideas to use multiple Salazzles and Fire Energies and Fire Crystals to use Salazzle to get a massive hand size to win with Unknown Hand, so the fact that it's not even just used in Fire-type decks makes this card
I'm gonna move it up a little bit more. I was just thinking because like I'll move it up to A tier because like Zoroark is an S tier card because it has an attack, right? Like Salazzle draws 1 extra card. I know it's a specified discard and it doesn't have an attack, but it helps support all of the fire stuff that we have access to, and with all of the extra fire support, I'm happy to say that that's an A grade card.
Yeah, it's still a busted ability. In fact, if it wasn't for a card we'll talk about a bit later, being Green's Exploration, if it wasn't for that card, I think that this card would be like an instant inclusion in every fire deck just because of how broken the ability is.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It seems like a pretty good one. Alright, we've got a couple more fire Pokemon. We've got 3 more. We'll start off with this one, Volcanion. Good support.
Yeah, this card is at least A tier.
At least A tier? What do you reckon, Blake?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I float between A. It's somewhere in the realm between A and B. If its second attack did a little bit more damage, like if it got to that 130 mark, I would instantly put it in A. But because of its own HP and the fact that it doesn't do 130, I'm sort of leaning towards B.
Yep, fair enough.
The scenario where you just attach like 3 energy to a Reshiram is like ridiculous on the second turn. You've got 4 energy out, and you haven't even played Welder for your supporter yet, or whatever your supporter may be. But the scenario is you could get 5 energy on the first turn because you declare the attack on this card going second.
Yeah.
What do you think? Actually,
what do you think, Ryan? Where would you put it?
I'd probably put a B tier. You know, it just rounds out the fire support, and it also makes your playstyle a bit different because whether you want to go first or second might change a lot of things.
I tend to agree. I'm happy to call it B tier. I think if it did 120, then I'd put it in A tier. Like, I think that 10 damage is literally the thing that separates it from being a good card and a really, really good card.
It's also the fact that like, if you don't start in the active, then you have to like pivot into the active, and if you don't, then you sort of have like maybe like 4 dead cards in your deck after it.
Yeah, I really like this card, and I don't think you play Reshizard without it. But yeah, it's not like broke off good. It's just really good.
When I think about the 110 damage that does, it seems like a really good number to me, because we're in a format where cards like Zapdos is like the ideal non-EX number to hit. But I guess when you look at the larger picture and think about the numbers that you're going to want to hit overall against a large majority of decks, I guess 110 probably is just shy of hitting to the A tier mark.
Yeah. So I reckon B tier is probably pretty safe. Let's keep going through some more fire Pokemon. This one's a deck of its own. Baby Blacephalon, where do we reckon this goes? I reckon it's up here somewhere.
I think that it is a B tier card. I think that this deck simply asks for much more than Reshiram does. You have to pretty much play Green Search every turn with this card, otherwise you're not going to declare the attack for enough damage against tankier tag teams and high HP GXs.
Yeah.
I reckon it's a really strong attacker, but it does ask for a lot. It's not like Zoroark where you kind of just need one card and you can do something.
Once the energy's there, you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this needs more stuff every turn after the energy's there. If it was just the energy, but it has to be in a specific place, it has to be in your hands.
It's difficult.
You need to assemble 3 energy to get onto it with Welder and a manual attach, and then you still have to have enough energy in hand to then discard to take a knockout. I know the lists that are playing it are running like 4 crystal and like 2 retrieval to help, but
I feel like I think it's really easy to kind of disrupt what this card's doing as well. Like, if you ever just have a turn where you still blow off their Wishful Baton, take a knockout, and maybe throw a Judge in there, like, Blacephalon just can't deal with that kind of pressure.
That's a big, like, if you can manage that, that's a big turn, especially late in the game, where they're not going to be able to draw that much because they've already thrown all their energy away to get their cards that they need. So I reckon that's pretty fair. It's a really powerful attacker, and it's a 1-prize attacker, which is really good. But I don't think it's as good an attacker as it could potentially be.
It has B-string.
That is true. It does have.
That's what people always tell me, but I don't think that.
But like with another new card where it just makes it like a lot easier to beat, as well as having 120 HP. It's like with three energy.
B-string's just a 5th welder.
Yeah, it's
in my eyes.
It's average.
Yeah, I reckon B is pretty fair. All right, here we go. This is one which we can argue about. Our final Fire-type Pokemon that I think is worth talking about is Arcanine. I really like Arcanine. I think he's really good.
He's right next to his old pal Machamp.
I don't think he's up. What do you mean, Machamp? No. This card does the thing that we were talking about before. You know how we were like, oh, Volcanion would be A tier if it did 120? Well, this card does 120 and then attaches 2 energy from the discard pile. The only thing that you need to do is evolve a Growlithe and Welder to it. Like, I get the issues that it has, but like it's a stage 1 with 140 HP, so it's going to be hard to knock out in one shot. It accelerates energy to stuff, and its second attack does 190, so like you can half hit anything in the game and then finish it off. I think it's a really good card. But
it actually does have a lot of good stats when you look at it that way. Like, the extra HP is relevant against both Zoroark and Dugong, and of course it means that it doesn't get knocked out by Volcanion while knocking out Volcanion one hit. Like, it's got some good stats. Obviously, the fact that it asks to evolve, it asks for a Welder. I feel like it doesn't ask as much as Blacephalon does to pull off what it wants to do. So I could see it being in C tier potentially. I could see it being somewhat close to Blacephalon, but I don't think it's quite the level of Volcanion.
I think it's more reliant on Welders as well, because obviously your secondary attacker for Arcanine is going to be Turtonator, which relies on having energy on the board. So like we say that Blacephalon relies on Wishful Baton, Arcanine relies on it even more. But in saying that, I'm just going to put it in S tier, because I think that's where it goes.
Oh, of course.
That's fair.
No, I reckon.
I didn't disagree with a single point you made, Mitch. But the one thing that brings Arcanine down is the fact that because there's so many pieces in it, like because it's a stage 1, and because you've got to accelerate to something that doesn't already need help, which is like the Detonator. It's because of the fact that it needs to be in a different deck to a Charizard Reshiram, or like it's not like, and the fact that its own deck, I don't think its own deck is stronger than any of the other Fire type decks. I think all the other Fire type decks are stronger than the Arcanine.
Fair. That's fair. I can understand.
And that's why that card's worse.
I can
Otherwise,
understand that.
it is a great card. Like it's probably one of the best Arcanines they've printed in years.
Yeah, I think it's the best
By a
Arcanine
mile.
that's ever been printed because it can do things.
I haven't closely followed the history of the card, but it is a very well-rounded Arcanine, and it's just unfortunately timed with a lot of other fantastic Fire type support. Otherwise, it could have been really good.
I reckon C tier is where I'm going to put it because I've got that little bit of bias as well. But I can understand the argument as to why it's below these guys. I just don't. I think that this is potentially a deck, right? But this is definitely not a deck. You know, like this requires a few things going for it, but it could be. Whereas I'm never playing this as a deck. You know.
Alright, you swung me. I'll have it and see on mine.
Alright, no worries. Sounds good. Okay, one last fiery card, and that is Flame Crystal. Where does this go? Up here somewhere, probably. It's a pretty good card.
I think it's B tier.
You reckon?
I think it's excellent in the Fire decks that it's good in. I don't think it specifically enables them because it's ever so slightly better than a card that we've already got, which is Energy Retrieval, which is why people play it in Fire, obviously. But if we didn't have this card, I think Fire decks would still be very, very good. And
this isn't
the reason that Fire decks are very, very good. It just helps.
Yeah,
it's a good card.
I can get behind that. Like, just it picks up the extra energy, and it obviously has lots of synergy with the stuff that's happening. Like, you can welder those energy, you can use them on Salazzle or Heat Factory or whatever. But yeah, it is just like it's playing 1.5 energy retrievals, which is great, but it's not the key thing that makes the deck work.
It's a quality of life boost to Fire. It's like, you can get 3 Fire, you can then play Welder and Heat Factory or Salazzle, where you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah,
really good.
I think that's fair.
And
Jordan?
that's why it's big.
Yeah, I think that like the fact that it's only slightly better than Energy Retrieval and it's limited to Fire. Like if we're just rating the card on how good it is, I think it's only like just better than Energy Retrieval because of the Fire support that we have. But if you take away the fact that all these Fire decks need so many Fire energy, just the simple effect of getting 3 Fire back from discard isn't that strong. So I think it doesn't reach higher than C or B.
Yeah, that's fair. I reckon. Whoop, what's happened there? Jeez, I've just had a panic. My computer's just freaked out for a second. That's okay. We're back. I reckon that's fair. So what do we do now? Let's go on to some GXs.
Yep.
Just to round out the rest of the big cards. There are plenty of bad ones. Do you want to start with a bad one?
Yeah.
All right. Let's put Venomoth Gx down here.
Right next to Muck.
Yeah.
D.
Not an amazing card.
It's got some niche applications though.
It does. It's kind of the same as it's one of those cards that has those interactions with special conditions though, isn't it? Like it's got the same problems that other decks had before it.
And it's different from a lot of Muck because it uses the synergy between special effects the turn that you inflict special effects. Because the supporter Koga puts on the status conditions, which is what the deck wants you to use to put on special conditions. You instantly benefit off them being there, and then you only need it to work the one time for you to benefit.
Yeah.
It's also the other supporter
it's
as well.
It's a little bit different. Yeah, Janine also. But both the interactions are very strong and very powerful against like certain decks in the meta. Like I think if you play Janine, you are immune to the attacks of all basics next turn, which is basically Kiram entirely, apart from the ones that run Jolteon, which I think they've now cut because Vileplume's not around anymore. So, I mean, that's very good. I don't know about the only evolution that attacks in like Reshizard is Salazzle if they're running it, which a lot aren't because they prefer to max out on Green's Exploration and abuse that. So that potentially like is very good against those decks. Just how reliably you can like reuse those exact supporters.
Yeah, it's not good though, is it?
No. It's extremely fringe because while I say these attacks are very good when you use these supporters, it means you don't get to use good supporters.
Yeah, good supporters.
You have to use bad supporters to enable this attack. which puts it up to the same standard as other cards that have good attacks without needing to play supporters.
Yeah.
So it's a bad card.
It's a bad card, unfortunately. Let's have a look at another card that isn't necessarily a good card. I don't think it's as bad. Celesteela GX. I don't think it's as bad as old mate Venomoth, but I'm not sure that it's going to be down here.
I misread this card when I first read it. I thought that it had safeguard ability, but it only blocks GX attacks. So your opponent is just not going to use a GX attack while it's active.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, the only way I can kill this is by using Right Being. It's like, or I could use Dangerous Rogue. It's like, ooh, this blocks Dangerous Rogue. Damn, I can't use that option.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just have to half hit it.
I'll just 2-hit it or something. Oh, that worked? Okay, cool. That was easy.
What's the rest of the card do? Like, that says enough about the card for me to want to put it down in E or D tier.
That's the ability. The attack is like Y Cyclone. It does 80 or 110 or something for 3 color.
It does 110. I actually don't mind the attack, but it's only good if it has a good ability.
Yeah.
The attack has always been serviceable on good cards. That type of attack. And its GX attack is average. All it does is allow you to it allows you to draw your prize cards and then to hand and then replace them. So you basically draw somewhere between 1 to 6 cards and then get new prize cards, which is pretty average. It's different from say the Metagross GX attack or the new Whimsicott Gx attack, where you literally choose the exact 5 cards you want. It's just 5 random or 4 or 5 or 6 random cards that you happen to prize.
Yeah.
That you probably don't even know all of because you didn't bother to check.
So we happy to put it down in E then?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Fill up that bottom tier. Alright, we've got a couple of GXs that I think are a little bit better now. We've got another one of my faves coming forward, and that's Blastoise GX. I reckon this card's also pretty good, but yeah, it's going to struggle because it's a stage 2.
Do you know how I would pronounce Blastoise with a stutter? Blastoise, and I think that's where the tier is.
The
for
T
this one.
That's the T.
I think it is a B tier card. I think when this deck sets up, it is tremendously frightening, and it has type advantage against possibly the strongest deck in the format, just based on hype at the moment.
Yeah, I reckon that's pretty fair. Like, to be able to, the thing where you shuffle in the energy rather than discarding it is really good, and it's got that nice synergy with the Blastoise from Team Up, which is also good. I think the issue that you're going to find with it is that, one, it's a stage 2, so that's a problem, and you're also setting up your support and your attacker off of the same basic, which is going to cause problems.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we've shown that in previous formats that setting up 3 different stage 2s was not only not out of the realm of reason, but also viable, and not people were doing it and doing well.
And in general, I've always not had a problem with getting a stage 2 out if it's worth getting out. Except when your deck only functions having multiple stage 2s out, it does get a little dicey. Although Water does have enough support with cards like Articuno that you can potentially salvage a slow start and still be fine. So I don't think it's too bad a position.
And I reckon the Squirtle that goes with it, with the free retreat, is pretty good. So you can get free retreat off of Brooklet Hill to get the Arcanine down and then make it a little bit safer.
Wrong deck, mate. We finished talking about that one.
Oh, I said Arcanine, didn't I? Articuno is what I meant. I'm just looking at him. Look at him. He's so cute. He's such a good... Anyway, you can get the Articuno down. So it works together, but I just can't get past the fact that you need to set up multiple stage 2s.
That's why it's not a better card.
Yeah, well, exactly. Exactly.
But I think the one of the best parts about this card is that it is so tanky. 240 HP, effectively 270 with the ability, and it has the convenience of having that symbol we're talking about, which is really good, which is the green one, because no one's going to play that goddamn type at the moment.
Yep, it's all going to be, because it's going to be beaten by red, so playing blue seems pretty good.
Yep, and there's not a lot that's going to be doing more than 270 damage in one turn. Not regularly, anyway. They can do it. They can do it once with a tag bolt or a double blaze, but decks aren't going to be reliably pumping out 300 damage.
We could be seeing the resurface of an old deck though.
Yeah,
that's true.
The old
Kiram.
That's true. We could get the Kiram out. We'll talk. We've got him down here though, haven't we? We'll talk about him in a minute. Alrighty.
It's weird to say that Blastoise is one of Blastoise's best traits is that it only gives 2 prize cards.
Yeah, It's got 250 HP though. That's really good, and it's got the ability which reduces damage. So it's a tanky boy for 2 prize cards.
It's good against non-GXs and big GXs alike because it's got the high health pool and the damage reduction to help against like the attacks that'll whittle you down as well.
Yeah, but obviously the thing that's keeping it out of the top tiers is the fact that it's a stage 2 that needs stage 2 support. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
All right, another one we've got Hunch Kuro Gx. This is an interesting one.
I think this is an A tier card.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's a big call.
I think
Really
this is an A tier card, but this is going to be one of those decks where it's going to take people a month or 2 before they figure out how to play it properly. And when people figure out how to play this card properly, it is going to be broke off good, and it's going to ruin people's lives.
I actually completely agree with that, because I keep looking at this card thinking, this card is really strong, but I don't think there's a good build for it yet. And there is a good build for it.
I think it is really good.
Yeah. Well, we obviously played it on the channel, and we were kind of like, we didn't think it was that great, but then we realized that we were playing Dusk Stone wrong the whole time.
I was gonna say, you probably thought it was bad because you didn't know what Dusk Stone did.
Yeah, it's we're famous for reading cards at the Sableye. So yeah, I think that's a pretty fair statement to say that it's going to be really, really good at some point.
I think it's really good. Yeah.
It's just a matter of figuring out what the list is, and
there's a lot of ways you can play it.
Yeah, it's not like Reshiram Charizard where you can just go what's the best way to blow things up. You've got to actually think about this Hunch Kuro list, and eventually someone will crack it, and it'll be everywhere.
Yeah,
I think there would be multiple lists. For it.
It's got too many things going for it. It has good health for what it is, a stage 1 GX, the 210, the benchmark. It's got a ridiculous ability. It's got a good attack. It's got a ridiculous GX attack.
It's got an unfair GX attack, doesn't it?
It does. It has an unfair GX attack.
And it's got Evo Soda as well, which is really good.
It has Wally on an item card.
Yeah.
For the people who understand the reference. But yeah, breaking evolution mechanics has always been ridiculous. People who remember Trevenant will not have good memories associated with it, but it was a thing. It's not as bad as Trevenant, but it's strong.
It's
pretty much Forest.
Yeah, exactly. So I reckon that's fair to put it up there. We've got we've got 2 more GX attacks, GX Pokemon, sorry, to deal with. We've got Whimsicott Gx, which we need to put somewhere, and I reckon this is another one where I think that it's potentially it has potential to be really, really good, but at the moment I'm not sure.
For me, I'll tell you, I've messed around with it, and for me, I have put it in C tier. I think that this card has one of the most obnoxious abilities that you could put on a Pokemon, but I don't think at the end of the day you're going to sleeve up a deck where the entire premise is if you don't flip coins well on the day, you're going to lose all your games.
And even if you are going to do that, I think I'd rather play the Greninja. The 30 less HP for 1 less prize is so much more efficient than the 170 for 2 prizes.
Yeah,
I can get behind that.
And the thing is, the attack, whilst it synergizes with Guardy, I think if I'm going to sleeve up Guardy, Gardevoir Sylveon tag team, I think I just want to build a deck around Guardian than actually putting Whimsicott in with it, because putting Whimsicott in with it just makes it awkward and clunky.
Yeah,
and you'd love to put in the triple accelerated energy and DCEs to pump up the damage, but even with those cards attached to it,
it still doesn't really do that much.
It doesn't get the big numbers.
I can see it being a good card and a decent deck in the future if it gets a couple of additions, but yeah, at the moment I'd be happy to put it in C tier. Alright, well, we got one more GX, and it's Persian. Where do we think this go, and why is it S tier?
Yeah, this has to be S tier, right?
Really?
Yeah, this card's busted, man.
It is.
This is a really good card.
Man, I was obviously, as the only person who hasn't played Zoro Dugong yet, I'm missing it right now. I'm sure I'll eventually understand, but right now I'm thinking between A and B tier.
No,
man. Oh, man.
No. It doesn't even have to be in Zoroark. if you have like 2 card spaces in Reshi, you could just put a 1/1 in.
Yeah.
Because even if they kill your Reshi, you get 2 free cards, which could be like Welder and whatever you want.
Because like you used to play Teammates, right? Teammates is a really, really good supporter when it was out, and this is Teammates, but you don't need to play a supporter. And it's got a really, really good first attack, and it's got a really, really good GX attack.
This is just clarification, but can you reuse Catwalk if another GX dies?
So you can, as you can use Catwalk once per turn, and if it's
reusable.
Yeah, if it's on the field, if they've knocked one out, yeah, no, 100%. You can use it multiple times as long as they don't kill the Persian. If they kill the Persian, then you can just put another one out.
Just put it in SD or stuff.
Yeah, it's broken. Like this card is really good.
As soon as I clarify that you can use it more than once, and then
not per turn.
Yeah, I know, not per turn. It's limited to one thing.
Can you like
with Triple XL and Revenge and the GX attack and that all together, it's just got to be S tier.
Can you use it like after you evolve it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as they knocked out a GX last turn, you can use Catwalk once.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you can't do it if you've got multiple Persians, but yeah, like this like the way I look at it, like Zoro Dugong with Persian is you can do 220 with a choice band if you've got 9 Pokemon in the bin, which you do because you play Zoro.
Just the attack is good. The Revenge.
Yeah. That's insane, and it's got Glisopod's GX attack, which was also really, really good. So,
but it's even cheaper now. You can do it for 1 energy.
Yeah, you just play down a triple acceleration energy and you're there.
I will add that Glisopod's GX attack was good at the time and has long since been like redundant. Like,
yeah, but I'll no way that GX 180. That's a good number.
That GX attack is no longer good anymore.
It's not, but the fact that you can just do a 180 out of nowhere is strong.
Yeah,
it's okay. It is okay.
Yeah, well,
I agree.
Yeah, but it also gives Zoro Dugong a usable GX attack, which it didn't have. So that's also a good thing. But yeah. When I went on Troll and Toad and saw that this was $5 for a full art, I was like, "That's the dumbest. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, this is one of the best cards in the set. I cannot believe it's so cheap." But I guess it doesn't have Charizard printed on it, so
people really hate Giovanni and Persian. So
I do.
It's like opposite Charizard. It's like the other end of the spectrum. Like people are making this card cheaper because it doesn't have a card that.
Yeah, because it's not a cool Pokemon. Alright, well, let's have a look at the card that goes along with Persian. Triple Acceleration Energy. And how far up do we want to put this?
I think this is also S tier.
Yeah.
This is a busted card too. Like,
this would be DC's replacement when it goes. Not in every sense of the word, but for most of the uses. And it enables much more Pokemon than DC did, because obviously it's an extra energy. Obviously the fact that it gets discarded at the end of the turn sucks, but I think the power burst that this card enables is more than worth it.
And honestly, the fact that it discards itself can in many ways be a benefit as well against specific cards.
Yeah, like you don't have a triple energy sitting on you so that Tapu Lele can just hit into you, or Gardevoir can hit into you, or whatever, I don't know.
Or Tapu Koko GX can't Tapu Thunder for 150 extra damage.
Yep, exactly. So like you just put it on there, do what you need to do, take a knockout with Persian, and then it goes straight in the bin, and that's perfectly fine.
I think it's funny because I think if this card came out at a different, like maybe a year ago, I think this card wouldn't even be played, because I just don't think four like triple colorless energies is enough to finish a game on its own. But now that we've got tag teams, the power and like being able to end the game with like just the 4 triple accelerated on your important Pokemon, it's enough. Whereas
honestly, if this was released a year ago, I think it still would have been played just to bump your DC count.
Yeah, I could use more DCs.
Yeah, that's what it would have been used for.
But yeah, I reckon. Yeah, but now that it's also got things that you can attach it to that need the triple colorless, and it activates some really interesting Pokemon like Slacking you could use now, I guess, because it's got triple accelerated energy. You know, like it's the same kind of thing as Welder. You can look back through cards and go like, what has 3 colorless that could attack? Can I do anything? So it's
some other cards that come to mind are Nidoqueen and Sylveon, which get a lot of use out of this card.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. I almost wanted to put Sylveon on this tier list just because it was completely irrelevant, even though being really good, just because of its awkwardness that triple colorless makes non-existent.
Yeah, so really, really good card. Okay, let's wriggle this along, because I feel like this video is going to go for 2 hours if we don't speed it up. We're going to do Pokemon first and then trainers. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Beautiful. We got Miss Magius. Dropped a 7 after you knock it out.
A tier.
I reckon that's a pretty good card. I reckon it's going to get better when
we get
Reset Stamp comes out. Yeah, because people are going to play it as that insurance policy. It sucks that you have to give up a prize, but hey, if it means that I don't brick, then that's fine.
If you ever thought about like drawing 7 like more than like 3 times and then ending your opponent to 2, then that's what's going to happen after this new set, because people are just going to play like a 4/4 Miss Magius line with Dust Stones, and then
with Hunch Kuro,
they're gonna go first, and then yes, with Hunch Kuro, they're gonna reduce your hand to almost 0 by using Reset Stamp and killing all their Miss Magiuses.
you win.
And then they're gonna use like Hunch Kuro's GX to take the next turn to give you no hand, and make sure you never play the game.
It's also a card you can just have sitting on the bench, so that if you do get Reset Stamped, you can just get out of it. Like, you don't need to worry about that. So right now, I think it's probably B tier, but going forward, I think it gets better.
Yeah,
and for that, it probably bumps it to an A.
Yeah, A tier. I reckon this is a good card going forward.
With Reset Stamp, Persian just does it better, though.
That's true.
Like, if everyone's just going to splash Persian, you just do better.
Yeah, that's true. But, you know, it's still a really good card.
Yeah, it's a B tier at the moment and an S tier in the future, so I think that I'll put it in A tier.
A tier? Excellent. Alright, let's look at some more Pokemon. One we've talked about a lot, Dugong. Where does this go?
That's at least A tier.
Well, here's
B tier.
Here's the thing, though. It's good, but it's good because of the format that we're currently in and the fact that it's got a good partner. Dugong by itself isn't amazing. The fact that it's with Zoroark and Persian makes it better. So
I actually feel like even without Zoroark and Persian, I think the fact that this card can just on the second turn of the game eliminate any deck from evolving and like getting its basics into play, and it can set up to potentially take 6 prizes on tag teams. I think if you find any good partner for this card, I think it's busted.
Well, and we'll probably see it going forward with Persian and stuff, but I still think that you're using it more as a meta counter. Because, I mean, like, if Charizard wasn't in the set, would Dugong see play? Probably not. You'd probably just stick with
yeah.
So much play.
No, it would. But I think my reason isn't because of it's like a meta thing, but because it's completely and entirely carried by triple colorless energy, and if that card didn't exist, this card would be awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, it'll be used alongside counter game potentially, but obviously triple colorless is the main reason that it's being. But it's
specifically like perfect mixture into the into a deck which can access specific cards when you need them, like on demand, like Persian Zoroark does. That's the only reason this card works well as it does. But if Dugong was just in a random deck paired alongside something, then it's just like it's okay. But it's not always going to work and be ridiculous. It's going to be,
it makes a lot of matchups good.
It does.
With Zoroark.
And it means that Zoroark kind of has all 3 like attack types.
Like with that card, it just probably beats every deck.
Yeah, like it can spread, it can half hit, and then it can take a one shot with Persian. So like it busts that deck and makes it.
Sets up the Jirachis as well with Tina.
Yeah.
Goes Mallies, a lot of things.
Beats other Zoroarks.
Yep.
I just feel like the potential this card gives you. Like if you use this card to its fullest potential, you can basically set yourself. You can map your prizes in a way that you can win the game so much faster than you could in any other way.
Alright, so what are we arguing here? Are we arguing that it stays in B tier or goes to A tier?
I think it goes to A tier.
Yeah.
Blake, you reckon it's B tier?
I'll concede.
You'll concede? Alright.
A tier.
If you want to talk about some bad cards for a bit, I've got to desperately go to the bathroom.
Alright, well you go to the bathroom and we'll talk about Wheezing. This is an interesting card because it kind of brings spread back, but it's not Tapu Koko.
I mean, its attack is technically better than Koko, right? I mean, obviously it's on a stage 1, so it's not as good as Koko. It doesn't have free retreat. It doesn't have all the good things that Koko does, but strictly speaking, its attack is just a better flying foot.
I guess that's true, and it's got a reasonable ability, but I just don't see, like, I can see people trying to play spread up until World Championships, but after that, once Koko rotates, I don't see how Wheezing is a good card. Like, I can see it being a fine card to play with, and it's probably a good way to start off. Like, if you're first coming into the game, or you want to give some kids a fun deck to play that isn't super expensive, but I don't see it being, like, a really, really amazing deck or card going forward.
Yeah, at best, it replaces Koko off the spread, but the fact that it's in the same set as Mew makes me say it's probably not going to be a good card, so I'd probably put it in D tier for now.
Yeah,
It's
I
cool.
reckon. It's a cool card. That's why it's here. It's an interesting card, but it's not super busted. Well, you mentioned it, Jordan. Let's talk about Mew. It's got Bench Barrier. Seems pretty good to me.
Bench Barrier is an ability that's not always seen play. It really depends on what's good in the meta as to how good this card is. I mean, in recent times we've seen Tag Bolt GX just being a card that completely destroys so many decks, and even going forward we're seeing this Dugong card which seems pretty good. So I think at the moment Mew is very relevant in the format. It's going to be a very high tier at least today.
I reckon it's a one-of in lots of decks going forward because there's lots of stuff that's trying to snipe. And if you want to deal with like Pikazek, it's a good card. If you want to deal with Dugong, it's a good card. I don't know. Like I feel like I don't know if it's an A tier because it's not like a broken card, but it's still really good.
It's also actually got a pretty decent attack as well. So
it's the place 3 damage counters, right?
Yeah, I think that it's a really hard card to rank because how good it is depends on what other cards are being played. Like right now, there's almost even an argument for S tier because 2 of the 3 top decks being Zoroark and Pika use quite a bit of spread. So right now it's like a super good card, but maybe in 6 months' time it might see no play because there's just no decks that require you.
Regardless
You go.
Regardless of whether it's being played or not, it's an S tier card because it's just good.
It is very good.
It's an S tier
card.
card.
Yeah, there'll always be a time when we need Bench Barrier. Like there'll always be a time where one deck is super better than the rest because they place damage on the bench, and that card is just like a single card counter, and it's just good.
Alright, I'm happy to put it up there. You happy to put it there, Jordan?
Yeah, I think it's very easy to swap it between S and A tier, but right now I think in the meta it's almost definitely S tier.
Yeah, I'm happy to put it there purely because we've got lots of big decks that are playing that kind of stuff. Alright, moving on, we've got Porygon Z with Crazy Code, attaching multiple special energy. This is a fun card. I think this is a cool card. I don't think it's a good card, but it has it's one of those cards that has potential if like something crazy comes up. Like if you can find a crazy combo with it, then it could potentially be really, really good, that Porygon Z, but at the moment not amazing.
It's definitely got a really strong ability. It's just, once again, it needs to wait for the right partner, and it needs to wait for the right special energy as well. Like, as soon as Double Colossus is rotated, all of a sudden it becomes almost a deluge for Rainbow energy, which is still pretty strong, but...
There's a lot of unit energies floating around that make it really strong.
There are, and you can play like Memory Energy, I guess. That's a card, but like there's
like a Recycle Energy coming out next set that's like interesting as well. But it's just like a really weird Rain Dance that doesn't really like speak towards one specific type of Pokemon. I don't think.
I think usually if I'm going to play Rain Dance, I'd rather just pick a type and just use Basic Energy, because you can play as many Basic Energy as you want. Special Energy, if you're limited to 4, you have to play a whole bunch of different Special Energy to make it work, and that makes it a deck that's naturally going to be kind of clunky.
Yeah, I feel like it's a D tier card. I think it's better than E. Like you might actually play it, but I don't think that it's that amazing at the moment. It has potential, and that's why
with the right special mix, it could be a good card.
It could be. Alright, let's talk about Mewtwo. Mewtwo with Mind Report. This is a cool card, giving you the ability to kind of recycle a supporter from the discard.
I can't remember a time we've got a card like this.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
It's really strong as well, just because it's a splashable ability that on a basic, like it's a ability you can always consider putting into a deck and it gets strong. Of course, the downside being it does take up a bench space, and as for right now, we have Palpad, which in my opinion is probably a better version of it, but there's definitely uses for this Mewtwo.
I think that with Palpad still being around, that there's a lot less uses for it, but it's like in Zoroark you can see a use for it, because you can just get that. It's like a VS Seeker that powers your attacker up. So it's
specifically in the new Persian breed, because it also fuels revenge as well.
So it's pretty cool, but I don't know if it's like... It's not like Mew in that I can safely say that Mew's going to go in, like, if I need it, I'm putting it in there. Mewtwo, I can make a choice, and like if I don't play it, I'm not going to lose games because I don't play it, you know?
It's definitely good just because of how splashable it is, and it's never really a bad card to have. It's always going to have its uses, but in general, I think it's either A or B, probably.
I think if your deck runs Zoroark or Jirachi, then this card should be worth considering because they both give you instant access to the supporter you just shuffled.
Or Salazzle.
Or even Salazzle.
Or Heatwave, or Heat Factory, sorry.
Yeah. I'm gonna chuck it in B tier because I don't think it's like an uber good card, but I think it's definitely one of the cards that like you want to have them. You want
It's
to make
not
sure
an effect we desperately called for, but it's certainly like really good.
Yeah.
A winning card too.
That is true. Alright, let's go for... What else have we got? We got another Psychic Pokemon here. Reset Whole Marshadow. Jordan, I know you've said this before. I don't know whether you've said it on the channel or not, but it's finally a Marshadow with a fair and good ability.
Yeah, I actually, unlike the other Marshadow, this Marshadow actually requires a decent amount of skill to use properly as well, but I think this is one of the best cards in the set. There's an argument for S tier. I'd probably put it in A tier for now, but
That's
it's actually
where I feel
really
like it goes.
got a really strong attack as well. Like
It kills Naganados.
Yeah, it kills Naganados, it kills Buzzwole, so Zoroark doesn't have to worry about Baby Buzz anymore. And more importantly, it is a way to discard Prism Stadiums that you can search for with any ball card.
Yeah, and like people are going, oh well, I'll just play Power Plant to beat Zoroark. This is a way that you can search out a way to discard the stadium. Because like you're playing like a ton of ball search cards in Zoroark, you can search it out, discard the stadium, and off you go again. It's fine.
You're probably playing 4 nest balls. You haven't used them all. You've probably got one floating around just specifically in case this popped up. Then, bam.
You're probably playing full Pokemon Communication as well, which if you don't need it, you can shuffle it away and then get it later on when you need it.
Yep, it's a really good card, and the fact that it mitigates some of the weaknesses that Zoroark has, like you can kill a Buzzwole GX with a Choice Band, like for 1 energy.
That's good. It's busted.
It's crazy. Like that's insane. Like,
I think
I don't know anything bad about this card.
The other thing too, which is like something we haven't touched on, is that like, unlike a Field Blower, which is like yes, like it's a one-time use and you get rid of it. Not only does this like affect Prism Stars, which is super powerful, it means you're not forced to play Stadiums if you don't want to, just because like you're scared of those cards. But you can also reuse it with Rescue Stretcher.
Yeah, and it powers up Persian, and it powers up Zoroark. Really, really good card.
In fact, it actually greatly increases the speed in which you can power up Persian, because you can just discard it off your bench straight away. You don't have to find a card to discard it.
That's true. You can just play it down. So I reckon it's a really, really good card. Don't think it's an S tier card. It's like it's not as like again, it's not one of those cards that like Mew you just play it and you can win a matchup because you've got it. But it's really, really good, and it's gonna see play.
It doesn't change. It doesn't change the meta as we see it just from it being there. I think it's just like it's just exceptionally good and worth looking at in almost every deck.
100%. Okay, let's move on. We've got some fighting types now. Talked about Zoroark a lot. Here's a Quagsire that is fighting type. It's got 3 water energy attack cost, so you can still play it in your Quagnag deck. But it's brown, so it knocks out a Zoroark, knocks out a Pikazek in 1 hit.
Yeah, this is obviously just attacking Quagsire and Ganondorf decks to give yourself fighting typing. Obviously, Zoroark and Pikazek are slightly harder matchups for Quagsire than, say, a Reshiram deck would be. But I almost wonder, is this actually better than the Onix, which Lister kind of already playing before this? Obviously, it costs 1 less energy, but it is a stage 1.
I have the answer, Jordan, and the answer is resoundly yes. Because I literally didn't have access to all the cards on release night on PTCGO. Instead, I traded for like 1 pack of Unbroken Bonds, and then traded for one of these, and made the exact list from from 19th place at Berlin, but changed the Onix for the Quagsire, and I found I went on like a 10-game win streak against some of like the new decks and some of the old strong decks as well, where this card made a notable difference. Like specifically the fact that 3 energy was necessary and 4 I couldn't get to. It's really, really strong. And there's so many scenarios where you're stuck with like you've been overbenching Whoopers because you're scared of getting like Guzma killed, so you can set up and you just have all these spare Whoopers doing nothing a lot of the time, and then there's finally a use for them, and it synergizes well with the Wish Baton, obviously, and it half hits all the stuff that it doesn't hit for weakness, so it's just
I like that. So where would you put it then, you reckon?
For me, it's an exceptionally good deck. Like an exceptionally good tech, in this one specific deck. So for me, it's a B tier.
Would you agree with that, Jordan? Does that seem fair?
I would probably say C, just because the deck that it is played in isn't like one of the best decks in the game or anything. It's kind of like a tier 2, tier 1.5 deck, and it's a tech 4 only a tier 2 deck, but it is a very good card in that deck.
I think it's a deck to look out for. I think
for sure. You look out for it.
Rise. But I think it's on the rise.
I think there are potentially better options. I tend to agree with Jordan that it's a tech for a deck that isn't a tier 1 deck. Therefore, I don't think we can say that it's not a Blacephalon that's its own archetype. It's not Blastoise, which is its own archetype. It's a tech in a archetype that hasn't been seeing as much play as it could have. I like it in C tier. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, it's C or D.
Yeah, no
That's
worries.
fair.
Let's go on. We've got another interesting card, Hitmontop, which goes with your Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan. So straight down here, probably.
Yeah,
I think you're underrating these cards. Obviously, because all of the attacks require the one previous in the chain to work, there's obviously room for disruption. But I think if you ever declare Hitmontop's attack more than once in a game, you win that game. And I don't think it's that unreasonable to do. I think with all the fighting, with the Dojo and Diancie and Choice Band and stuff like that, Hitmonlee sniping 90 is also like really strong as well, considering you always get off Hitmonchan because you can't disrupt that attack. So Hitmonlee's easy to use.
I would kind of agree with that logic, except for the fact that we were just talking about how busted the card Mew is, and you can just play Mew down and you absolutely can destroy any kind of Hitmontop deck.
I tend to agree. Even if it is like a card that we're gonna use in that particular deck, we just put the Quagsire in C because it's a deck that doesn't necessarily see a lot of play. Hitmonlee, Hitmontop sees even less, so I can't see it being any better than the D tier card. It might be better if we played expanded, because I know that it's been played a little bit out there in America, but yeah, for us in Australia, looking at the standard format, I cannot see Hitmontop. Whoop, scrolled up a little bit for a second there. I cannot see Hitmontop being a relevant card.
I think it's probably fair to put it in D tier.
Yeah,
because it's not without hope, but
it's not a bad card by any stretch, but it's
just for my own benefit. Where did Wheezing end up?
Wheezing ended up in D tier.
Yeah,
D tier. Yep. I disagree. What was your argument? Was it the Mew?
Mew is pretty good.
Yeah, it doesn't stop damage counters, so the Wheezing slowly kills. Yeah, but Wheezing slowly kills it, and also if you Guzma kill the Mew, you obviously you don't get the benefit of the bench spread, but you're still ticking with Wheezing on the basics, and it's like its attack just one shots the Mew as well, and it doesn't really care. And also you'd play Wheezing with 4 spell tags, and 1 tick of Wheezing and 1 spell tag proc kills that Mew also.
It does have inbuilt counters to Mew, but even if it doesn't have Mew to worry about, it's like a slightly better Coco when Coco is already not that great without Electro Power right now.
I think it's a mixture. I play it as a mixture, but
yeah, fair.
I'll stop distracting from a card we've already reviewed.
That's okay. It's okay. We understand. Like there are positives to it, and that's the reason it's actually on the tier list, because there's a whole other level below E tier, which is bulk tier, which is just garbage cards that we're not talking about. So the fact that we talked about it means that there must be something going for it.
Especially since it's on a GX.
Yeah, exactly. GX has just happened to be there because they're shiny.
Rare.
Well, let's look at another card that like Wheezing and like Hitmontop could potentially see play, but probably isn't that great, and that's Rhydon. With what's it called? Dirty Work? Is that the attack name? I think it is.
Yeah, Dirty Work.
Yeah. So it's a mill card, right? You're milling stuff.
Yep. So for a DCE, it doesn't do damage. It mills 2, but if you play Giovanni Schemes this turn, it mills 5, which is quite a large amount, especially on a stage 1. Previously, for those kinds of effects, it was evolving into an Aggron or a Rhyperior, and it did 3. And you've got usually sort of cap out at 2 or 3.
And you've got the Diglett as well, which when you discard them, they
when they go to the discard through Giovanni's schemes, they also mill an additional card. So Giovanni's schemes can mill 2 cards, and then Rhydon can mill an additional 5. And with like Brooklet Hill and like stretches and stuff like that, you can get a sort of an engine going. Problem is, like, the Rhydon isn't super tanky, so you could quite easily get rushed down before you get decked out. So
normally, I would say that you can't really afford to use Giovanni's every turn because obviously you're going to run out. You need to play other supporters, but considering this is a deck that's going to be falling behind, you can actually use Giovanni somewhat consistently thanks to Lieutenant Surge, which is nice.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually quite interesting. You can do that, but like I don't think that like Mill has never been like a really top tier deck. Like the fact that you can mill 7 on a turn is good, but I just worry that you're not going to be able to do that consistently enough throughout the game to actually win it. I like the fact that it's actively milling instead of passively milling like all the store decks do. So I'll give it respect for that, but I can't see it being any higher than D tier.
Yeah, D or C at best.
I think D is the resting spot for that one.
Let's chug on. We got one more fighting type, and that's Stack Attacker. Now I didn't put Stack Attacker on this list. I walked straight over it. But Blake, you said that it should be there. Why should it be on this list?
Actually, I think it was Jordan who mentioned it.
Was it Jordan? What did? Sorry, I thought.
But it's for a reason that's related to me because I've been messing around with Stall. This is a Stall card. Its attack is like almost irrelevant. You're probably not going to use it to attack. It's got like 120 HP, but its ability, when your opponent's when your opponent has 3 or less prizes, then its HP becomes 200 on a basic.
That's really high.
It's higher than Regigigas and higher than, well, any other like non-GX basic without modifiers. So,
well, my question though is, would you use it? Like, do you use it in conjunction with the Melmetal Lucario? Like, is it its own stall deck? Like, where do you just use one of it?
I think it would be in conjunction. I think you would just like either replace or cut down some of the Regigigas or Hoopers to like make space for 1 or 2 of these. And
I mean,
an interesting like late game wall.
I don't think it's as good as Regigigas, just because obviously not only does it not work for the first half of the game, but it can also be shut off by cards like Muck. That's not a huge deal, but I do think that overall it's probably a slightly worse card than Regigigas overall, so it's not going to make a huge difference to mill decks, but it gives it another option.
So where are we going to put it? D tier?
Yeah.
Yep, fair enough. Alright, we're going to talk about a few more cards that I think might be D tier as well. What is this? This is Zeraora. I've got another card that I wouldn't have had there, but we got asked for it.
Well, this was desperately asked for by the community because it was a card that we got teased super early in the game, and we thought we were going to get it in Lost Thunder, and then we thought we were going to get it in Team Up, and now that we finally got it, it's probably not good enough. It's just like for like Lightning DCE or just Lightning Double Colorless or whatever. It does 50 times the number of lightning energy you choose to discard from this Pokemon, I think, or the lightning attached to it. I think it's discarded.
Yeah, it's discarded.
So yeah, you can load up a lot of lightning energy on here, and then like you can full blitz to it. It's one of those things you can full blitz to post like Tag Bolt GX for like any relevancy other than setting up another attacker.
Yeah,
when I think of an attack like that, I think of it as being like the perfect synergy for a Rain Dance deck. Like that's the ideal kind of attack you want in a Magnezone deck if Magnezone ever sees play. And I guess this card does give Magnezone a chance to see play, but I just don't think it has enough HP to be a main attacker.
No, I don't necessarily think that there's enough going for it to be a top tier threat. I reckon it's got some potential, which means it's probably in D tier rather than E tier, but I don't think that it's amazing.
I think it's probably E tier. I think it's probably got just it's got a little bit going for it, but probably not enough to get it up to the point where you think about it.
Hey, I'm happy to put it in E tier. It means that we fill out our little screen a little bit more. Okay, we've got another electric Pokemon, and that is Stunfisk.
Yeah, this is a very interesting little guy. I don't think he's got very much HP either, but for a DCE, he does how much is it? Is it like base 20 or base 30? But like it multiplies based on the number of damage counters on your Pokemon.
30 times 30.
This is 20 times 30, isn't it? Yeah.
30.
30.
30.
20 times 30. That would be a weird.
So 30 base damage plus 30 for each damage counter on your Pokemon. And of course, this synergizes with a Spiritomb that came out in this set also, which puts damage counters on itself. And anything else you can think of to put damage counters on your Pokemon, like Rainbow Energies and stuff like that. So the damage ramps up very quickly, and also it's Lightning type, so it gets Electro Power if it needed it. So it's also got access to that, so the damage adds up very quickly for it.
But is it just one of those cards though that it's an interesting card that you probably want to keep a card of, but that you're not necessarily going to play? I don't.
It's really good.
I honestly think there's a chance this deck is decent because the only thing that would make this card irrelevant is spread, because you have a bunch of low HP Pokemon that have a lot of damage on them.
But you do have Mew,
like
don't you?
Oh, we have the Mew. We just got the Mew this set, which helps prevent that. So.
All right. Well, where are we going to put it then, Blake? You tell me, because I reckon Spiritomb probably going to go pretty close.
For me, I think it can be a C tier card, but
yeah.
having not tested it, it's hard to tell. But
yeah, that's fair.
Just based on theory alone, I think it's better than all of the other cards in D tier, and almost as good as the other ones in C tier.
I can't believe how low Arcanine is based on all these. Sorry, I'm still thinking about Arcanine. Let's talk about Spiritomb, because he goes with Stunfisk. You reckon he's a C tier one as well, being able to put those damage counters on? And he's got.
I think Spiritomb could potentially go one step above, just because I think it has uses outside of Stunfisk. It's actually just like a pretty strong attacker in general. If you can just sit it on the bench and then kind of use it to get close to closing out a game, it's not bad.
You reckon? So
what is Spiritomb's attack? Remind us, Jordan.
I think it's 50 times, 10 plus 50 for each damage counter on it, or something like that. Might not be 50.
10 plus 30.
Yeah, 10 plus 30.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, like by the time you've got 4 or 5 turns past, it's doing like 180 for 1 energy, which is pretty solid for an non-EX attacker. Like,
yeah, that is pretty strong. But I reckon C tier for the moment is probably pretty fair. Put it next to its buddy, and I mean it can always go up and down a little bit, but I feel like C tier is probably where it fits a bit better. Okay, so we got one more Pokemon left, and that is Kiram, new Kiram from this set. I didn't originally have it in our list, but again, Blake or Jordan, one of the two of you put it in. So
this time it was me.
This time it was you. So talk us through it, Blake. Why is it here?
I think there's. I mean, again, it's for a specific deck, so that probably already leads to where it's going to end up. But I think it specifically could be the new face of Nagquag as its new main attacker.
It's actually so strong.
What's the number on Hail Prism or whatever it's called?
So it does 110 damage, and if you discard 2 water energy on it, then the defending Pokemon's paralyzed.
Well, that's pretty good.
And obviously, you can use it every single turn for the paralysis effect.
Yeah, because you have if you have 2 Naganados, you're always going to get the 2 water energy back, and then straight back to the active with Quagsire.
Yeah, fair enough. And with a choice band, it's half hitting pretty much everything in the format. I can see pretty solid reason for that to be included, and to one shot a Reshizard with a choice band. Hey, can't complain.
Yep.
Obviously, the downside is a lot of decks have ways to get around paralysis, and of course, there's no way for you to get an infinite lock because you have to take knockouts every time you knock them out. They have the chance to respond, but if every turn you paralyze them and you either force them to find a way out, or they have to just stay there until you knock them out, that's a really good price trade when using a non-EX.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me.
Kiram's really good.
Yeah, that
130 HP. It also accelerates in energy per turn. You want to?
For its first attack, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So you get an extra energy.
Yeah, I would say that's almost definitely going to be the strongest way to build Quagnag going forward.
Alright, well, I guess we'll put that in C tier as well, for the same reason that we put the fighting Quagsire down there, but
I think, despite the fact that Kiram would be the new main attacker, I think it's still about as equal, like a new influence on the deck as the new Quagsire is.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you've got both of them means that the deck is, like, potentially quite a lot better, but they are still both for a deck that is, at the moment, not necessarily the first choice of people.
I could see an argument for B tier just because I think this card is better for the deck than the other Quagsire, and I think this could be the card that ends up boosting Quagnag upper tier. So I could see an argument for B, but as for right now, C is probably...
Yeah. Well, you have to ask yourself if we're going to put it in B, like, is this card as good as Volcanion? You know, like, that's the question we have to ask.
Yeah.
So, we'll say no for the moment and leave it in C tier. Which brings us on to our trainer cards. We've got some interesting ones. I'll leave the supporters for last. And we'll start with Chip Chip Weldy Hammer McGee, whatever this card is.
Chip Chip Ice Axe, say it right, don't mock it.
Chip Chip Ice Axe.
What a great name. S tier just for the name.
Yeah, we'll chuck it straight up there. We won't even talk about it.
If we're rating all of our cards by name, then this is S tier.
Chip Chip Ice Axe. Tell the folks at home what it does, Blake, because I couldn't tell you.
Okay, so what this card does is you get to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. You get to choose one, and it stays on top of the deck, and then you shuffle the rest away.
Right, so it's essentially like setting up them to brick again next turn, and I can see some obvious synergy with Hunch Kuro Gx and those kind of annoying decks. Chip Ice Axe could see quite a lot of play in those.
I mean, even in stall, like it buys turns in stall. Like it literally, you just be like, oh. The only way I lose next turn is if they get an energy or a way out of the active and stuff like that, and then you just play that like, oh look, there's a switch on the top, better make sure they don't get that next turn, and then
alright. So what you're saying is it makes stall better?
Yes, stall.
Alright, so straight down to E tier. Let's get rid of that one straight up. Well, whereabouts do we think this fits? That sounds like a pretty good card at the moment, and it has a bit of potential as well.
It just sounds very specific to me, like they used to do it. Obviously, it's very good in specific scenarios, but it is still a very specific time and a specific way you want to use that card.
I'm kind of floating between D and C for the same reason as lots of the other cards that are in those areas. We put Stack Attacker in D tier. I don't know if it's as like the same level as that. Maybe it's a bit better.
It's better than Stack Attacker, but they're not all the same in D tier. But I think I would rate it as D tier for now.
No worries, that's fair. Well, let's get another card that also potentially goes down in the lower tiers, and that is Devolution of Spray-Z. This is a cool card, but again, not necessarily a super amazing one.
Once again, it's very specific, and it ends up being as good as the cards in the format that it works with. There is potential for there to be busted on-play abilities in the future where you just want to continuously cycle Eversprays throughout the game. But as for right now, I really don't see much potential for this card in the near future. So I would argue this is probably an E tier card.
Yeah, I'm chucking it in E tier. It's a reasonable card, but it doesn't necessarily have the synergy that it needs to be, up there just yet. So it's a good card. It works
excellently with the Greninja GX line.
It does, and it's a good card to have, but it's not like amazing.
Not good enough, I think, to warrant playing it. I'd rather just attack with the Greninja GX and shuffle it in anyway.
Yeah. All right, let's move on because we're getting close to the end now. It's been a long video. I don't think we've ever done a video quite as long as this one. We'll do 2 items at a time now, or this instance, because we've got 2 Fairy Charms. And I think wherever we put one, we're going to put the other. So Fairy Charm Lightning and Fairy Charm Ability. Let's talk about those.
I think that's true because both of these are exceptionally strong because they both almost completely knock out an entire deck archetype by themselves when attached to a fairy Pokemon.
It means that you can slow down Zoroark. You can get rid of any threat from Zapdos from Pikachu Zekrom. Obviously, it doesn't affect Zapdos because it's it's GXs only, but it pretty much is the reason that Gardevoir is in the B tier. So I'd say that we'd have to stick these in B tier then.
Yeah, I think these are 2 of the stronger Fairy Charms that we've gotten. If not the 2 strongest Fairy Charms that we've gotten. And obviously, there are weaknesses to them. They are restricted to Fairy Pokemon. They can be full blown away, but they do just give you the potential to swing matchups. And for that reason, I think that it probably sits around the same spot as Gardevoir.
Yeah, that seems fair. We've got another item that is type specific, and that's Metal Core Barrier, which is like Bursting Balloon, but it protects metal types from 70 damage for a turn, and then it gets rid of itself. What do you reckon, Blake? You played it today, I think, didn't you?
No, I didn't play this tool today. But I think that's going to end up being the reason this card's rated lower is because it has too much competition at the moment. I think it's probably better than Metal Goggles, I would say, at the moment. But I think currently, just due to the fact that you need to have protection from fire types in these dire times, that you absolutely need to have prevention of weakness, which the Frying Pan gives you. And minus 30 is nothing to sneeze at either. The extra 40 damage reduction just isn't worth giving up weakness immunity, which the Frying Pan does. So whilst this card's really good, it's not going to be the go-to tool for steel types until
later.
We see either Frying Pan or fire types go away.
Yeah, so what are we thinking? We're thinking D tier or maybe even E, because we're not going to play it until much later.
Probably D tier, just because it does have potential.
Yeah, I think it's better than Devolution Spray, because you might actually play it, but you obviously want to have the Frying Pan instead.
Yeah, it's D tier because it's actually a good card, but it needs the environment.
Yeah. Alright, we've got a couple more. Let's go with Fighting Dojo, or whatever it's actually called. Where does this go?
This is a tricky one. Mainly because initially I thought this was an average card, but then I learned it was just basic fighting energy attachments, not fighting type Pokemon. So anything that has a fighting type energy attached to it gets this benefit, which is insane.
Except for Ultra Beast, which is actually relevant because obviously some of the Ultra Beasts are the cards that would benefit.
Because they hate Buzzwole.
Yeah, but I actually think one of the best things about this card is that it actually still has a use while you're not behind in prizes. You would think for a card this strong that it would simply be, if you're behind in prizes, do 40 more damage. But the fact that you still do 10 even while not behind, I think this gives that card a little bit the extra push to how good it is.
It's like a universal devoured field. If you can find an excuse to put basic fighting energy into a deck and have it not be horrible, it makes this card a universal devoured field, which is good.
The problem is though that at the moment there's really not that many Pokemon that we're going to be saying we're happy to play fighting energy on. I'd say for this format it's going to be pretty low, but I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited for a card that comes out in the next set for Worlds that does use fighting energy, and we're going to see a lot more of this card in that format, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think it's probably safe to say it's at least a C tier card and can only go up in the future.
Yeah, I reckon that's fair.
That's where I tend to agree.
Alright, let's go for Energy Spinner now. Another card that we thought we weren't going to get, but then did. This card's pretty cool.
I've been waiting for this card for so long, and I'm so happy that we've finally gotten it. I think it's kind of just a better energy lotto in most decks, except for the ones that play all special energy, obviously. It's not quite as good as Fiery Fin for fire decks, but it's almost just a staple card that is going to be played in quite a lot of decks that just need a little bit of extra help with energy search, especially decks that use a Jirachi engine.
Yeah, this is just what the doctor ordered for Lightning, because one of the biggest point of entry to those explosive opening turns is having multiple lightning energy in your hand to discard to power up Tapu Koko Prism, and instantly through having Jirachi being able to access this card to search energy as well as Viridian City or Viridian Forest, suddenly the percentage of you getting those massive turn 1 pop-offs where you full blitz on the first turn just go up exponentially.
Yeah, and full blitz is going to be a really a really easy thing to pull off with the Dene and Energy Spinner. It's going to be so easy to get that turn 1 full blitz. It's going to be insanely easy.
On an average day, it's going to be Energy Search, and at its best, it's better than Professor Letter, which was played in almost every deck that used basic energy.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say it's probably an A tier card. I don't think it's quite good enough to be S tier, but it's just a solid staple card that's going to see a lot of play.
Yeah, I reckon this one's going to be around for a long time. It might not be as high as A. I'm happy to say.
I had it B tier myself.
Yeah.
I instantly put it in B. I thought it just made sense. It's it's an auto include in very specific decks, and it's super good in those decks. But
my thing is, if you compare it to,
it's kind of wrong not to put a staple card in A tier at least. I feel
if you compare it to something like Fire Crystal, which we've got in B tier, I think the Energy Spinner is better across the board. So A tier for me seems pretty fair.
Yeah, based on the way we've been rating cards before, I think it makes sense. Because this is a neutral card.
Well, let's go for a card that isn't a neutral card now, Beastbringer. I actually don't think this card's very good. I don't see you ever really using it.
I think I agree with that.
Effect.
I think this card either goes next to or below the card that it was designed to be paired with, which is that Buzzwole Pheromosa tag team. I think like it's all based around the dream scenario where you haven't taken a prize yet, but you set up a low HP Pokemon. You get the extra energy, and then you put a Beast Bringer on Buzzwole Pheromosa and declare Beast Game GX with the bonus effect and take like all your prizes in one turn. But obviously the format isn't exactly, allowing for that at the moment because it's not the format it was when that strategy was viable.
Yeah,
so...
I can't see it being... The only Pokemon that I can see it being relevant on is like you said, Buzzwole Pheromosa, but I can
see it being good on like Baby Blacephalon and like Blacephalon GX because their first turn, it doesn't matter what it is going to take an additional prize, which is really strong because that means that it's an incentive not to use Burst GX until like at the end of the game. So
just a quick question for how this card works: if you use Buzzwole Pheromosa's attack to take 2 knockouts at once, do you get an extra prize for each of them?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know the answer. I'm going to double check the wording on the card to make sure I get it right.
Because I think if it doesn't do that, it's probably just D tier. If it does do that, it has potential for D tier.
Yeah, because I like it's obviously not. It's not a
it says
terrible card.
it says if you have exactly 6 prize cards remaining. So I believe that if you were to Jet Punch and take 2 knockouts, that you would take a prize, check for how many prizes you have when you take the knockout. You would take a prize, and then for the second card, you would check the prizes again and see that it's 5, and then it would not activate.
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll probably have to double check a ruling on that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, that seems like it would be logical.
To me, that's a 3-prize scenario.
We'll chuck it in D tier for now. But it could potentially be better. Like we don't know what Ultra Beast is going to come out. It could like rocket up the rankings if it gets the right partner, or if Buzzwole Pheromosa sees a bit more play. But at the moment, with a fire heavy format, probably not the most useful card. On the other hand, a card that is exceptionally useful is Electromagnetic Radar. This is a good card.
I think this is the first type specific card I would consider putting into S tier because I think it's going to be like it's so ridiculously good in Lightning decks, and because it also targets the Dedenne GX, which is going to be like people's go-to support Pokemon in the future, and because post-rotation we don't have very many good ball search cards, that having targeted search for the Dedenne is super strong. I feel like this card just, for me, has to be S tier.
That's the reason that I would put it in S tier as well, is the post-rotation format where you need like ball search to do anything, and to be able to search out the Dedenne really easily means that you've got yourself an option. Obviously, Ultra Ball and that not being around anymore is going to weaken lots of decks, but at least with Electromagnetic Radar, you can get a Dedenne to get 6 more cards.
I think while Ultra Ball's in format, I wouldn't rate it above A tier. I'd probably put it in A tier while Ultra Ball's in format, but if we're looking towards post rotation, I think it bumps up to S.
I'm happy to say that it's an A tier card and then move it up later, but there's obvious potential for it to be an exceptionally good card. So we'll leave it in A for now, just because I think there's a couple of other cards that we've got that could potentially go higher, and we might talk about one of those in just a second. But first, we have Dusk Stone. Dusk Stone on its own doesn't seem that amazing, but when you look at the fact that 2 of the Pokemon that it works with are in A tier, now suddenly you've got yourself a very, very good card. I imagine that's probably going to be up there in A tier with them.
I think it only makes sense that it has to go in A tier to go along with the Pokemon that they both make each other that super good.
Yeah, and like if
they would be good without each other.
Exactly. It's one of those cards where if the Hunch Kuro and the Mismagius were a little bit lower, then it would be. But since those 2 Pokemon have such high potential, happy to stick that one up in A tier.
And not only that, there's room for it to improve in the future because of its text. It doesn't specify what kinds of Pokemon. It just says like Mismagius, Hunch Kuro, Chandelure, stuff like that. And I think there's 1 or 2 more as well. Chandelure, and Angerslash. So
Yeah,
there's 4 different Pokemon. So every time they print one of those cards, we have to look at it because Dusk Stone can get that Pokemon out early.
Yeah, and it can make it really, really good, which would be excellent. But here's a card that we might be able to debate a little bit more. Our last item before we move into our stadium is Pokegear. And the question is this an S tier card or is it an A tier card? Discuss.
Jordan disagrees with me, but I think it's an S tier card because I want to put 4 of it in everything. But then when Jordan challenged me to think of another deck other than Reshizard to put 4 of it in, I couldn't immediately give an answer.
I think
that's the only reason I think it doesn't belong in S tier right now. Once again, it's a really strong staple card, but I mean, it's only look at the top 7 for a supporter card. While we've got Lele in format, there's other ways to do that. There's obviously decks that it's really strong in, but it's probably just slightly off of S tier to me.
I can agree with that to a point. I feel like it's closer to S tier right now than Electromagnetic Radar is. So if like any of these other cards in A tier, I would say it's the closest to being S tier. So I'd be happy to put it in either. I can see the justification for saying that it's in A tier.
I couldn't agree more with that.
Beautiful. Well, let's shoot through these real quickly. We've got Power Plant now. Power Plant is a good stadium that just straight off turns off GX abilities. Means things like Zoroark are no longer a pain. The Dene you can't use, Lele you can't use, all sorts of stuff. It seems like a pretty good stadium, especially for decks that don't know what stadium that they want to run.
I think that card's S tier. If in the future you are ever playing a deck that doesn't run GXs, you should probably be running Power Plant. Because GXs, more often than not, tend to have abilities. And they're usually pretty strong, as we've seen throughout this review.
Yeah.
I mean, all the cards in S tier, 2 of them are GXs with abilities. One of the A tier GXs has an ability, and so does one of the ones in B tier.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And all of the ones that are below it, apart from Celesteela, don't have abilities. So if you're going to run into a GX, it's going to have a good ability. I reckon Power Plant is an exceptionally good card. I could see it being A tier, but I reckon I'd be happy to keep it up in S.
I mean, once again, Power Plant's one of those cards that is as good as the cards that are in the format it's supporting. So while there's good GX abilities, it's going to be a strong counter stadium. It's just that Marshadow that's kind of throwing me off a bit. I mean, it's just such a good inbuilt counter to Power Plant for any deck that runs GX abilities to just sit on the bench and say you can't show off my abilities now because I'm just going to get rid of it with Marshadow. But
that is true. I'd counter that by saying that the fact that you need to play Marshadow to counter it, and if you don't, then you probably lose, is testament to how powerful the card is.
Agreed, especially since we're going to be losing cards like Nestball after post-rotation. It's going to be a little harder to get that Marshadow when you need it.
Yeah, so...
And Field Blower, so getting rid of the stadium is also going to be harder without like searching for a Marshadow.
Yeah. So I'm happy to keep that up in S tier. We've got 5 more cards to go. We'll run through them very, very quickly because we're rounding up on like 2 hours of content here, so this is a hell of a big one. We've got Gardevoir, Ultra Forest Mega Man, Gardevoir, whatever his name is.
He's probably a D tier. He's a really cool niche supporter in anything that uses Ultra Beasts because, like, getting walled by Hooper or anything that has like an annoying effect that prevents damage and stuff like that is so frustrating. And just having an easy answer to that is just amazing. So that in combination with like the new Mewtwo gives you like a refreshable answer against those super annoying decks that you didn't have an answer for previously. But it's super specific, so it's probably a D tier.
Yeah, obviously it's a specific card you can use to tech if your deck loses to any specific kind of ability or effects that you can't get around. You can just put this in to beat it. I can't really think of anything right now that like really screws Ultra Beast over that much. Though I mean, I guess the Sceptile in theory that blocks Ultra Beast, this would be an easy counter to that. But it really just depends on what cards are being played as to how good this card is.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and that's probably why we stick it in D tier. A good card to keep. You want to have a set of those, but you probably don't need them straight away. We'll go for what I think is probably, of the 5 supporters that we're about to talk about, the next best one, which is Giovanni. his scheme. I reckon that's a pretty good card, but I don't necessarily think it's that amazing that we're going to be talking about it for any more than C, D, E tier around the bottom of this list.
I couldn't disagree more. I
Really?
think this is a B tier card. Because I don't think its usage extends like purely to this mill deck, which like synergizes with it. I think any deck that has support Pokemon that are like absolute hindrances, like Venutadene, Tapu Lele, they can lose you games thanks to like things like Tag Bolt, stuff like that. I think anyone who's played this game for a decent amount of time can think of a time where they've opened a horrible Pokemon and gone, man, if I hadn't just opened that Pokemon, I wouldn't have lost the game. And Giovanni provides you the option to get rid of that Pokemon, plus any other unfortunate bench that you've been forced to do.
It's just kind of...
and it enables other strategies as well.
In those situations, though, I feel like you'd almost rather a card like Ace Roller, because the one thing that Giovanni doesn't do is it doesn't remove Pokemon with damage on them. And that's why, like, Pokemon with damage on them are typically the ones that you want to pick up more. Obviously, there are cards, as you mentioned, like Dene, that you want to be able to discard, but those situations are so, like, it doesn't really seem worth wasting your turn as a supporter just to get rid of those cards. I mean, it's definitely a good thing to be able to do, but I think that it's not really going to end up being worthwhile most decks playing and spending a turn to get rid of those abilities when you can just play a different supporter. It's usually better.
My thought on Giovanni is this: having played Zoroark Dugong a little bit, there's been multiple turns when you kind of like, oh, I could play it now, or I could better my board state by doing something else. And if you're playing it, like, I'd almost rather play Nanu than Giovanni in Zoroark, just because.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like it provides a little bit more utility, and you're not removing your damage and stuff. Like, I can see the logic behind it, but it's one of those ones where in isolation it seems like a good idea, but when you're actually sitting at the table playing, the ability to find that turn where you can get rid of those liabilities and then not hinder yourself down the track, it's interesting. Like, I can completely see where you're coming from, but yeah. I don't think that the practicality of the card actually lets it do that as often as we'd like it to, which is why I'd say it's probably
one of those cards that's much better in theory than it is in actuality. But I think this is one of those cards that like in the future we're going to be glad it exists.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
It's an excellent option to like a suite of supporters we have. It fills the void that Acerola doesn't. You don't need to activate like Rainbow Energy to ditch a card anymore because it's weighing you down.
I'd reckon we probably put it in C for now, just because.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Yeah, I would concede to C if you feel so strongly about the fact that it's harder to use.
Yeah. It's like all of the things you've said aren't untrue. It's just the practicalities of actually doing it sometimes can be a bit awkward. But hey, anyway, 3 to go. We've got Red now. Red's Search, whatever it's called.
Red's Challenge, I think.
Red's Challenge,
yeah.
Yep. Where you discard 2 and search your deck for a card. We've seen this effect on an item before, and that was exceptionally good, but is it as good on a supporter?
In fact, we've seen this card see a lot of transitions over the years. It started off in base set actually as a 4-of item card, eventually got reprinted as an ace spec, you can only play 1, and now it's been demoted once more down to a supporter card. But honestly, searching your deck for any one card is still a strong effect, and while I don't think it's going to be a 4-of supporter like some of the other supporters on this list, I think that it's one of those niche 1-of supporters that you'll quite likely be putting into decks just to give you that little bit of extra consistency. Kind of like a Skylar in some formats, but better.
Yeah,
I feel like it's almost the spiritual successor to Mallow.
I reckon you're right, because it gives you that extra, like it gives you that consistency that you need whilst giving up the other benefits you might get from playing another supporter. I think this is
a combo activator.
Yeah, like it's the I need this one card right now, let's go for it kind of thing. I can see this as being like a solid B tier card.
Agreed.
I tend to agree.
You'd have make sure you've got 1 or 2 of them, but yeah, I don't see us playing 4 just because there's going to be better supporters to play 4 of. But you know, it's there and it gives you that extra consistency if you need it.
And you just can't get away with grabbing 1 card at a time every turn.
Exactly.
You need more than that.
You need to be able to do more. But hey, there's a card here that lets us do a couple of things. first of all, we'll talk about Lieutenant Surge. We'll save Green for last, because I think I know where Green goes. But Lieutenant Surge being able to play 3 supporters in a turn, that seems like a pretty good effect.
It is, and at first I actually didn't know the requirement of having to be behind in prizes. I thought
Neither did I.
Before you could just play, and I was like, this might be the most broken support they've ever printed. Now that I know the restriction, I think it's still a really strong card. It's just a lot more limited in the decks that it can be played in.
Yeah, there's...
we thought it was going to be played in everything because of the no restriction, but now it's only going to be played in some things and be really good.
Yeah, so it's one of those ones where it when you play it, it will be amazing, but there's the fact that you need to be behind and the fact that you need to play it first is a big deal, because people are kind of like, oh well, Surge lets you play 3 supporters, so I'll play it after I've played a supporter. Well, no, you need to have it in your hand with another couple of supporters to play it, so it kind of restricts its usage a little bit more. Still a really, really good card. Where do we think it fits?
I think it is A tier.
A tier?
I think because my logic is it is S tier in all the decks that it works in, but it only works
in some decks.
In some decks.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense.
For the highest of S tier, I can't say enough how strong this card is in the decks it works in. Because I was playing still today, and
it's busted.
It's amazing. You can just play Surge, and then you can just play your loser main, but you can play the card that one of the cards you loser main for. You can just oh, okay, I'll Plumeria and Guzma this turn. It's gross.
That seems pretty good. But hey, is it as good as Green's Exploration?
Certainly not.
Probably not.
Probably not. I reckon that's if it's not the best card in the set, it's in the top 2 or 3. It's so good, and we're going to see this played as a 4 of in almost everything for 2 years until they print a supporter that's better.
It's not quite to that extent.
Until they put until every basic is printed with an ability, and then it becomes unplayable or something.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. It's really good.
It's actually similar in the way to Surge is, where it's obviously a really busted supporter in the decks that it's good in, but it can't be played in everything because.
You can't play it in Zoroark. Yeah.
The thing is, its restrictions are so easy to get around that even though it's restricted, it's still worth considering in the decks that it doesn't quite work in because it's that good.
I would say moving forward into a post-rotation format, there's going to be 2 different types of decks. There's going to be the Jirachi's decks and there's going to be the Green's decks. And those are going to be pretty much 2 of the main consistency builds going forward. And even now, before post-rotation, we're still seeing decks that are running 4 Greens and benefiting hugely from it.
Yeah, so I reckon this is a card that is too good to ignore. I wouldn't be complaining about it at all.
It's at this point in the video that I'd like to welcome all the people who skipped to this part to see the completed tier list.
Yep.
Good job, you saved yourself a lot of time.
Yep, I've just shuffled it across for everyone so that they can see the whole thing. That's it. But now you don't get to see the letters.
This is the screenshot. If you want to see a lot of bickering, then watch the whole video. If you have to around the whole time, thanks a lot.
You're a better person than Ryan is, because he's disappeared for the last 40 minutes. I got no idea where he's gone.
Yeah, it didn't incorporate me into anything.
He's just been sitting back. He's just been sitting back listening. But hey, anyway, if you are here after 2 hours. Then, hey, tell us what you think, whether you agree, whether there's any cards we missed, whether there's any cards that you disagree with. Maybe you think that something should be higher or lower or whatever it is, whatever you think. But hey, thanks Blake, Ryan, Jordan for coming along.
No problem.
Leave a like or a comment below if you think Ryan should appear in more content.
Yeah, I reckon he should. I enjoy it.
I think so too.
Show Ryan some love.
Yeah, so Ryan, love in the chat would be great. And if you like it, then like, comment, subscribe. If you want to see more, click the little stable eye on the left-hand side of the screen. At the moment, you're seeing a video that YouTube thinks that you might like, and on the right is our playlist for Unbroken Bonds. Thanks everyone for coming along, and we will see you all next time for more from the Sable Eyes. Bye.
Bye.